with Jianshuan, Shanghai to Anchuan. I really love Shanghai security. Look, I'm in Italy. Italy is a great country. I'm in a small town. Everybody in Italy is watching out for pickpockets. Nobody's getting shot and killed. It's not huge violent crime, but we're watching out for pickpockets and little things. And what's hard for people to believe in the West is I could leave a pile of $100 bills and my cell phone at a coffee shop table, leave, go talk to somebody, come back half an hour later, and they would still be there. In fact, they'd be there all day long, you know? So the security of Shanghai is, to me, one of the great benefits. I mean, people don't rob and steal. It's, it's your personal safety is you can go out at 3 o'clock in the morning in the most dangerous looking alley and nobody's going to bother you. And, you don't have to worry about your laptop being stolen, at a coffee shop, so that part is very unique to China. And I think it's wonderful. Like, I can't say enough good about it.
People would argue, yeah, you may be safe. Maybe some people will not believe it, but they'll say, yeah, you're safe, but you've been watched like 24/7. You don't have any privacy. You always like all the CCTVs in front of you. What would you say on that?
Sure. And that's okay. So let's talk about that for a second. And you are correct. I lived in Shanghai in 2010. And when I got there, Chinese Shanghai government had not yet rolled out security cameras on the streets and for traffic surveillance as well. So when you were in a taxi in Shanghai on the streets, the guy would be driving down the road, stop the car, do a U-turn over 3 lanes of traffic. It was insane. But as soon as the security cams went up for both street use for pedestrians and for cars, I'm not joking and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that Shanghai drivers drive like they're in Switzerland now. Okay, not quite that good. I exaggerate. But I would tell you, by comparison to what it was like in 2010, it's night and day. So are you surveilled? Yes, you are. There is no question about it. You are on camera. When you're walking on the streets, you're on camera in the common areas of your apartment building. So yes, video surveillance is a part of life in China. Is it a good part of life or is it a bad part of life? From the perspective of someone who lived there before it became the norm, where we did have people stealing your cell phones, you couldn't leave money on the table at the coffee shop, and cars drove like maniacs on the roads because there was nobody there to give them a ticket. The improvement is remarkable, and it is certainly in my personal view worthy of the sacrifice of my video privacy while I walk on the street to be ensured this level of security. Now, somebody else may come up with a different assessment of that, but in my view, it is societally positive in the sense that the security cameras and the video footage are a wonderful deterrent to crime. I don't do anything on the streets that I am worried about being videoed. I don't know. That's a facile answer, and I know some people are probably jumping out of their seat, but I see the video surveillance system in China as a before and after picture, and I see it as nothing but positive. I'm sorry, and I know that drives particularly European privacy advocates go nuts with this, but I submit. Well, first thing is to know is that the UK, I think, is second to China in having video surveillance footage. So
But it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, perhaps, but they're big in surveillance, but
Yeah.
to me it was certainly a net positive for society. And it's funny because in my apartment complex recently we had to take a vote to put video surveillance for our car parking, and I was the biggest advocate saying, yeah, we should get extra cameras for our parking area so that it has video surveillance and that it's, it's it's not robbed.
After living for quite a long period of time in China. Then you came to Singapore, you moved to Singapore for a couple of years. Was it like weird for you? Was it like weird version of China kind of thing? Or like weird mix of like China and the West in Singapore?
No, that's a wonderful question. And so the answer is Singapore has a vibe that is very unique. And it certainly is not, for anybody listening who needs to keep this in perspective, Singapore is not China light. Okay. So if you live in Singapore, you are essentially living in the West, whether you call it a UK influenced version of the West or a US influenced version of the West. It's a sort of a hybrid between the two. And that's fine, but it is not China. No way. It doesn't feel like China. It doesn't work like China. People don't think like China. Yes, people are of Chinese ancestry. That is true. But, these are people like me when I say I'm Italian. I've been substantially influenced by American culture because that's where my educational system was. So I can never compare myself to my Italian cousins here who've gone through the complete Italian education system. So a Chinese person living in Singapore has gone through a British education system to some degree. All right. So they can never compare themselves in totality with a native Chinese who's gone through that educational system. So they are very, very different.
Chinese and Americans, what's like the big things that are very, very different as how people think?
The one thing that I will say that they're similar on, before we talk about the differences, is that they both, mainland Chinese now has something called the Chinese dream. And, the dream is not very different than the American dream. And it's a good life for your children. It's a car, it's a home, it's material affluence to a certain degree. And those things are very much similar. But what you see that is extremely different is that in China, there is less emphasis on independent, I am going to be the hero or star and attain this dream through my own singular efforts, and a greater willingness to work with others in a company or in a group setting to attain. The dream is the same. You want to get to that point, but how you're going to get there is visualized differently. And we look in the United States toward Steve Jobs. I want to be Bill Gates. I want to be that individual star of greatness who achieves something wonderfully. And in China, you certainly see that. You see the Jack Ma's and you see the others who are tech wizards or great singular people who do great things and had great companies. But from a day-to-day level, I think you see a greater willingness to cooperate and be part of a larger entity that will get you there.